Welcome to episode 2 of our Let's Learn Go series. If you recall, last time we built our first program, the Hello World. Now we're going to go into values. So to get started with that, let's create another folder under our source directory. This one we're going to call values. And we're going to create a values.go, and we're going to build our base source code here. Now we're going to add our base framework that we need in our program. So first is package main. Then we need to import our FMT. So we have the format package that we are going to be using, because we're using obviously the format print lines in this program. And we're going to build our main function. And under here, we're going to start with our first print line function. fmt.print line, and put in go plus lang. So if you recall, this is just like our Hello World, right? And in this, we have our main package saying, hey, this is where we're starting. We're going to add and use the format package here. And in our main function, we added the format print line. But something is different about this. We added this plus. What does this plus do? Well, why don't we go ahead and run this program. Let's see what happens. Now that we ran it, we see go lang, even though we have this plus. So what does that mean? Well, let's take that plus out and let's see what we get. Well, first off, we get an error. That's why it turned red. So we can't take that plus out, right? Otherwise it's not going to work. If we try this right now, let's just go ahead and run it. Let's get an error. It's going, hey, wait a minute. This is unexpected literal. We're missing something here. So the syntax is wrong. In other words, the interpreter's like, I see two different strings and I don't know what to do with this. So we can get rid of that by just doing that. You know, if we get rid of that plus and run it, now it's just going to say golang, which is what we have up here. So what was that plus for? Well, that plus adds these two strings together. So remember, a string can be a single word, or it could be a group of words, or it could be a group of any type of symbols. That's a string. It's a literal value. Well, by putting this plus in between, we're adding it. So and we could do this to multiple things. So we could say go lang, and then we could add another string in here is awesome. And we can actually run this. Now watch and see what happens. And what do you think is going to happen? It's going to combine them all, right? Well, what is going to be an issue with this? It works, but it made golangus instead of golang is. So with this, we would need to add a space, and that would fix it. Or another way of doing it is we could actually add, remember, anything literal can be a string. Well, we just added a literal string here of just a single space character. Well, if we hit save now and run our program, that works too. So that's the neat part about coding, is there's many different ways of doing something. There's no one right way. But you're going to find as we do more and you learn more, there's better ways of doing it. It requires less typing and it just makes more sense. But we'll get more into that later. All right, so that's how we combine strings together. What about math? Well, let's do some maths. We're in our next line, we're going to do FMT, and we're going to do our print line statement. And in here, the example is 1 plus 1 equals, and then we're doing a comma, and then 1 plus 1. So now this isn't in parentheses. So this 1 plus 1, and you can tell the color is different too. There's something different. Now you might be seeing this little a light bulb over here. If you click on it, it shows what can happen and gives you examples. So just know that's what it's another helpful thing. So this print line here, it's going to print this statement, and then what do you think it's going to do with this? Well, if you just said add, then you were right. So let's go ahead and run this. 1 plus 1 equals 2. Sounds great, right? We can change these variables or the math if we want to, and make it to whatever we want. So the other type of math, we just did whole numbers there in a very literal example. But what about floating point numbers? And floating point numbers is basically decimals. So pi, like 3.14, that is considered a floating point number. So by putting that 0.0 in our example, here, what we're doing is we're saying, okay, take 7.0, divide that by 3.0. And what are we going to get? Well, we have to add our comma in because we got to get our syntax right, so it knows what we're saying. And then we need to add our digits, our floating point numbers. Now that we added that, saved it, let's clear this so we clean up, run it, and now we see our value, 2.333335. And the neat part about this is you could change this. So let's say we want to make this 7 divided by pi, and save it, and then run it. I did something wrong. Did you catch it? I changed the string, but I didn't change the calculation. So actually, when I was working on this video, I made that mistake. And I'm like, hey, this is a perfect example of how to screw up. So don't forget, when you change something here, you need to change it over where it's actually happening, and vice versa, so it makes sense. Because if you only change one part, you're going to get confused. So now that we changed both, let's run the values.go. And now we're going to get our appropriate value. So 7 divided by pi. And that's what that, the 2.2292, blah, 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 blah. So you can do addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, whether it's whole numbers, partial, floating point numbers, any combination of, which is nice. So that gives you a lot of flexibility when it comes to equations within Go. Now, what about Booleans? Well, Boolean value is a true or a false. It's an on or an off. That's all Boolean means. So in this example, we're going to take this print line, and actually we're going to, this time I'm going to cheat. We're going to copy and paste that, and we'll do true and false. Next one, we're going to do true. If I type it right, pipe, false. So these pipes here, this character is, those are not I's, those are not L's, those are actually, they're called pipes. That's on American keyboard, it's between the enter and backspace keys, or at least near there. It's the character is directly above the backslash characters, just so you know where it's at. And then our last one is exclamation point and true. So now we're going to save this. And when we do this, it's going to give us the exact same output that we see over here. False, true, false. So that begs the question. Okay, so why is this saying false? Why is this saying true? And why is this saying false? Well, our Go by example doesn't tell us all this, but the Go programming language documentation, the specifications rather, tell us under logical operators. And this is all under go.dev. This is the reference, this is part of the library. So by all means, you can look this up very easily. So the and, this is a conditional and. So when it says and here, that means true and true. Both things have to be true, or both things have to be false to be true or false. So since we had one false, not both are true, so it was false. Likewise here, we've got the pipes. This is going to be your or operator. This means true or false. Well, since we had one true, it's going to give us true. And then our last operator is exclamation point true. This is our not operator. So this exclamation point true basically means it's false. So examples, how would you use this? Well, if you were comparing things in your code, like let's say you had a variable of a list of things, and you have another list of things, you want to compare them both. Do they match? Yes or no? You just want a quick yes or no. This is a great way of doing that because you can compare the two using these. You know, if this one has this in it, but this one doesn't, I want you to do this. So you can use these type of operators to be more flexible in your code. Now, these forward slashes that you see me typing, those are comments. So, and you can put these anywhere. You can add them at the end. You can add them just about anywhere, and you'll see how they're green. That allows you to add in comments and notations so you can understand what your code is doing. It's actually a really good habit to keep the comment in your code. And you'll notice when I hit save there, this popped this over to, it's all part of just making the code easier to read, which is really nice. So thank you for joining me on our values, and I'll hope to see you in the next lesson.